Our college campuses are not okay. I've had more conversations with non-Jewish people who are like, what can I do to help? The mission statement of the ADL was to stop the defamations of Jews everywhere and also stop hate everywhere amongst all people so they live within peace. Does it hit the root cause? No. I think we both know, we all three know, the root cause is deeper. It's way deeper than that. As for like the root of hate, I mean, how far do you want to go? Because I think what we all saw October 7th was like this test of friends of like, are you with me or are you not? Where do we go from here? How do we stop this from happening again? Having these conversations on a human to human level, you're going to get those results rather than, and I hang a lot on the internet. I have my Instagram handle. I love my stories, but I know at the end of the day, my impact is when I'm showing up in person to someone. I might say something controversial.
Good.
Finally.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
Welcome, everyone, to another amazing podcast of the Jew Function. The reasons behind the reasons. I just came up with it today. Where we're trying to figure out what's going on in the world, really what's motivating everything that's happening, specifically as it relates to Jew hatred, because we feel, we believe pretty confidently that if we solve that, we solve a lot of the world's problems. Somehow this is the linchpin in this whole big theater. And we've done our research. We've looked at many hours of pages of historic research, and yet more pages of quotes from Jewish sages, and studied some network science, although none of us are network scientists, so please don't send questions on that. And we came to the conclusion that there is a story here, and it's bigger than we think, and we have to get to the root of it, and that's what we're doing here. We're inviting people to talk about the root of anti-Semitism and the solution to it according to the laws of nature, and we believe this is something that we can actually start implementing now, even while we're dealing with the symptoms. So, Seth, are you ready for a special ride today?
Ready.
give me a little extra something. Just you want me to throw some news at you? Putin announced he's going to invade Kazakhstan soon. Hamas and Israel are nowhere near a deal. Israel, the right and left are at it again here. In the States.
No, we're in the miracle business, first of all.
Oh,
okay.
Right, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we're in the miracle business, and that's what it's going to take. And but what can you do to make a miracle? It's not like, if you want to make a certain carrot cake, you need like a few ingredients to make carrot cake. But what are the ingredients for a miracle? We have to make the conditions for the miracle, because when you put hydrogen and oxygen together, it's two flammable gases, they make a liquid. So
amazing,
that's
right?
kind of amazing, right? So it's not like a miracle. It's a miracle only if you don't know the laws. But the laws say that there will be, that to be a light to nation won't lift sword against nation, the wolf will lie with the lamb. Like, there's this whole situation, but in order to do that, there needs to be some preconditions. So we're interested in setting up these preconditions in order for this miracle to take place. The miracle is actually really not a miracle. It's just, how does hydrogen and oxygen become water? It's the laws of nature that are kind of beyond our picture. And we're asking everybody who's listening, and pass this on, just even through your heart. Dream big. Imagine a world. Like, do not accept the crap that you see on the headlines and what the politicians are telling us, that everything just has to be war forever war. Imagine that there's some other perspective and something else that we're all possible of, and not just, okay, I could speak for an hour about this. Let's bring on our guest.
I just want to say that if you're in doubt, think of the very first person who saw popcorn happening. Right? They're like, look at this little yellow, bam! Like, where did that come from, right? So it's only a miracle because we don't know how the inner workings of things. So there are no miracles. Or you could say, I remember, I forget who said that. You could say either there are no miracles or everything's a miracle. But you can't say like, oh, we're just going to live our lives and then suddenly this is a miracle. No, there's just laws that you're not seeing. And what we're trying to do here is uncover those and talk to people about actually bringing it to our lives right now. So with that, I'm super happy about our guest. She's first of all, I heard a podcast she was on recently, and half of it, I think half of it she was giggling, so which was great. You don't get a lot of gigglers these days, and she's
so much to be upset about. It's wonderful to be upset about. Somebody is happy.
Yeah, there she was, snubbing her nose at depression. I love it. She's a master of public health degree, but really she's all about fostering connections, driving social change, all those good things, good words that we like to hear on our show. And I think she was recently appointed, where's that title, to be the Minnesota Community Engagement Manager for the ADL. So with that, please welcome Iola Kostrzewski, not Polish.
Hi. Yes, I am not Polish.
Iola, how are you?
I am good. I'm good. I'm taking a break from Hebrew language learning and with you all. It's great.
That's amazing. So I gotta start really. I mean, what's your secret to all the giggling and the laughter? Let's tell people right away. Don't let them wait an hour to find out.
So I have there's like two things. I have 6 kids. Okay. So like
how many?
My kids are 6. Yeah, 6.
6. Okay.
Yeah. Life choices. But like because of that, they're always laughing, and like you can't walk around as a mom like always really depressed, even if you feel really depressed, because like kids feed off of that. And right now we have a baby who like really feeds off of that. So I try to find like the light in things, especially when they're laughing and you have no idea why they're laughing. I'm like, that's not funny, but I try to like see it from their point of view. So that's one. But then another one is actually a very Jewish teaching of if you have a wedding party in a funeral procession and they meet in the street, who has right of way? And in America, they'd say the funeral procession. No, it's actually the wedding party, because life goes on and you must find joy. And it's a very Jewish teaching. And that's something that I'm desperately holding on to, even though some days I'm like, F it all. I don't care. But it's something that I'm really holding on to.
I heard, Jim Gaffigan, the comedian.
Yes.
Yeah, so they said, you want to know what it's like to have 6 kids? Like, imagine you're drowning and someone hands you a baby.
Like Andy Moore babies.
Yeah.
That is how, yeah. Their age is almost 2, so we're like getting into that terrible 2 phase. And then we have a 12-year-old who will be a teenager in like next week. He'll be a teenager next week. And so I have like toddler who truly knows nothing, and a child who's going to turn into a toddler but has the mind of a child who knows all the things. There's no difference between toddlers and teenagers. Like for me, I'm like, they're kind of the same. You're kind of, except one's potty trained and the other one's not.
So first of all, I mean, amazing, and that you actually have time to sit and talk to us. That's also, and that you're doing all these million things that I saw on your LinkedIn. I know you talk about it in this other podcast, so we're not going to get into that. But I know you have this fire in you. I get it. It's great. So just in case people also wonder, just give us the non-Polish angle. What's up with your last name? Just so we.
I married into it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, married into it. I was not born with it. I actually went from Edwards, so I was adopted. So Edwards was my adopted last name. But if we go past the adopted last name, my birth last name would have been Hadida. So that would have even been like more confusing for
the
people.
Moroccan
like,
thing.
Yeah, exactly. But most people don't know that. They just hear Hadida, they think Arab, and then they'd be like, "Oh, you're Arab. Like, how are you Jewish?" But no. So Kostrzewski, I love to watch people's faces when they read it out loud, and then they look at me, and you know exactly what they're thinking, but you sit in the silence and the uncomfortability, and you let them say it. And it's really, for me, it's really, really fun. So we'll say things like, like, Kostrzewski, how did that come about? and it's really funny. But no, I married into it. I've since divorced from it, and I've since remarried. And so people are like, you've kept your last name. One, it's to match the kids. I have kids from that marriage. But the other thing is my new husband. I hate saying that, like, but my new husband. He is not Jewish, and his last name. You want to talk about last name? His last name is Saint Main, and there's something about being a Jew with a last name that says Saint in it. I feel like that brings even more confusion than the Kostrzewski aspect of it. So I kept the Kostrzewski. Saint Main has been added on, but I rarely ever use it, especially in Jewish circles.
Wow. And okay, so this covers the genealogy side of the
Yes.
podcast. Uh, um, we invite people here to talk about this thing, this elephant that just won't leave the room, right? This Jewish hatred, which has actually always been there. I mean, we on our shows we always talked about it, how it was always there. It just sort of rears its head when it's the right moments in history, but it never actually goes away. And and there you are, suddenly you showed up, and you're working for the ADL. And one of our questions, I don't want to say all out gripes with the ADL, because I never interacted with the ADL, so I can't say like, in fact, actually, wasn't I booted from an event they had at the Javits Center? Was that the ADL?
Were you?
I can't.
Oh,
I
was it
went
the
down there to.
conference?
There was a conference. Do they hold conferences in Javits Center? Yes, they do.
What did you do, Leo?
No, nothing. I went in. I went in. I wanted to find guests for the podcast. We had just
Oh my
started.
gosh. Did you do that this year?
No. That was like 3
Okay.
years ago.
We had someone do that this year, and yeah, they got kicked out. So we hold the standard for everyone. We just kick everyone out.
Yeah. So okay. So I shouldn't feel special. It's just your way of welcoming people. I got it. So, no. The funny thing was, I mean, look, on the one hand, I understand. I understand what is. I served in the Israeli army. I know security and all that, and they had a bunch of the guys, and everybody's very serious. And you see this lone guy in a jacket. It was winter. It was cold.
Probably looked homeless.
I didn't look homeless, but but I'm
He
a
had a
big
long
guy.
beard at the time.
I don't know. Like maybe I have like stuff in my jacket. I don't know. And I show up there. I'm not on the list, right? Because I didn't know if I had to buy tickets just to mingle. I thought tickets is only for the main events, but you could just like walk in and just mingle, right, in the lounge or something. And so I went in, and I was like, hey, can I come in? He's like, who are you? And I gave him my information. Oh, you're in New York? Are you American? No, I'm Israeli. Okay, what are you doing here? They do all that, and they start to, the wheels are turning, and
they start communicating.
And yeah, they start communicating like, okay, wait here, we'll get this guy, and we'll get this guy. In the meantime, I'm there. I'm just talking to people. I'm like, hey, did you ever think why, you have Jews in the banks and this and that? So I just brought it up like out of the blue. No, I was a bit more subtle. I was like, oh, hey, I have a podcast. We're trying to solve this thing about anti-Semitism, but not just look at the symptoms. Try to really find the root of it. What's happening? What's going on? We have to look at things, ask questions, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't like it. And eventually they were like, dude, you gotta leave the building. And it was funny. It was funny because it was a long walk. It was empty. The Javits Center was empty. They had this downstairs thing. So I was just like walking, and these two big guys are standing watching me walk slowly to the.
You look back, they're still staring at you.
Still staring. Yeah. So I'm sorry. So that was my experience with the ADL. So, I'm not like, and it was, by the way, I'll tell you one more thing. This is actually a nice closing of the circle, because it was right after when we started the podcast. The very first thing we did before the podcast started, there was the No Fear, No Hate March on the Brooklyn Bridge. Remember that one on 2020? I made myself a little reporter credential, because you can, it's legal. I was, of my own, the Jew Function magazine. And I walked the bridge and I talked to people about, why people hate the Jews, all of that. And parts of that walk ended, I live streamed it on Facebook. It had more views than the people actually on the bridge that day. And I used parts of that conversation in our first episode of the podcast. So like, why is this thing a thing, right? Why people hate the Jews? Why it's not the usual reasons. It can't be. It's way more, it's deeper than that. And so I had that, and the following week or something, there was the ADL thing. I used my little thing badge, and I went down there, and I thought they'll let me in.
They're like, no.
That was a story.
No.
Sorry for that little detour, but you are now working with the ADL, so I'm
I
curious.
am.
Yeah, so I'm curious. What is they tell us? What are you doing there?
What
And
am I
how
doing?
are you
What
going to
am I
solve
doing?
anti-Semitism? Just tell us.
Oh gosh. Well, that's a really big question. That's like weight on the shoulders. No, so I've been at the ADL for 3 months now. And it's been an interesting experience. And I say interesting, I mean that in the most like Minnesotan way, if you're familiar with Minnesotans. When we say interesting, it's never anything good. Like we're like, yeah, that's interesting. It does not mean anything good. It's gotten better. I've joined ADL at a pivotal time. So October 7th happened. I was working in public health. And my kids, they have their bar mitzvahs coming up, and they're asking me all these questions. And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm frustrated and very angry with the silence from many people in my circles, or the very loud violence from other people within my circles. This started at October 7th. Like there was no like break. It was like October 7th, and there was like and there was no like waiting period. And I realized I needed to shift careers. So I ended up, long story short, I ended up at the ADL. And I'm the community engagement manager. And what I really love right now, I'm eating so much food and drinking so much coffee with like community people and like stakeholders. I don't have to pay for it. It is like amazing. And if my boss hears that, thank you. But it was things that I was already doing. I was already having conversations. I come from a very strong community engagement background. And these are conversations that are already starting to happen. And now I'm like, I get paid for it, and it's great. And within community, ADL for Minnesota has not really had a strong presence as in someone on the ground. I work from the Chicago office. So like this year we have someone who is full-time on the ground in Minnesota. And it was a little rough start, because I did not realize when I said I work for the ADL, there was a silent contract that I clearly signed. And people took that as that. And like there's people who don't talk to me anymore, because they saw me working with the ADL as I stand for certain things. And I'm gonna be real, I'm a Zionist. I'm a left-leaning Zionist. Yeah, what's up?
So what you have, there's people that that if they know you work for the ADL, they just cut you off.
They cut off. There was no conversation.
And what is it? Is it similar like if you say I like Trump, for example? Okay, we never talk to that person anymore. Is it the same kind of?
It's the same thing. It was the very Zionist approach ADL has taken, which is interesting because people knew, like, there was no secret that I was a Zionist before I worked for ADL. But I think like the ADL stance like really cemented it. It meant like we're not changing Iola's mind anytime soon. And what really sucks about this is like, had they like said, hey, can I talk to you about how I'm never going to talk to you again? They'd have gotten like a free coffee or meal out of it. Like they didn't play it right. Like my job, I feed you and you can tell me all the things and then you never have to talk to me again. They didn't play it right. They don't talk to me anymore. It's fine. But I have gained, on the other hand, friendships and relationships that did not exist that now exist. I have people who reach out to me who have questions on XYZ happened on campus, or I need this, and I can connect them with people. I might not know the answer, but I can connect them with the resources that I have. And that has been very rewarding.
So continue your thing about the ADL. So people just like wouldn't do it, wouldn't have the conversation, but you found out all these new friendships and all the stuff that ADL is doing.
Yes. Yeah, there's been more friendships, more connections, and the friendships that are forming they're deeper. They're on this level of like, I see you, you see me. We've been through like the same history, especially like the last few months. And so like that BS is already cut out. Like we don't even have to go through that. Because I think what we all saw October 7th was like this test of friends of like, are you with me or are you not? And you like sat on this teeter-totter and like waited. And like now it just is like, it's you're with me, you're down, you agree. We might not agree on now how to solve all the things regarding the issue, but I know at the end of the day, you're with me.
So on that, give us maybe a few bullet points on, again, just out of sheer curiosity. This is a big organization. It's been around for ages. It's gotten a lot of criticism. Some say it's done amazing work. Others say it started to target other issues, that like using their clout to target other things, and there are all kinds of voices. So, but right now, I feel like the seventh was sort of a reset, as you said, and
Yeah.
so the question is, what is the talk? What's the water cooler talk at the ADL? How, are we changing attitudes? Is there a new strategy, and is there a new horizon? What? Give us something.
Okay, I'm gonna give you like my PR, what the emails say I can and cannot say.
Okay.
The water cooler talk right now, honestly, I want to smile through, like, as I say this, but I can't dig a smile out of me. Our college campuses are not okay. That's where we're at right now. We're hearing from students. I'm connecting with, my own college campuses here in Minnesota. The kids are not doing okay. And that, I think, is the biggest concern. And depending on where you are, especially in the US, is going to determine the extremism that is happening. So whether you're on Berkeley and physically being attacked, like you're being strangled for being Jewish. Like, that is a thing. We have college students who are walking around on campus and physically being attacked because they are Jewish. To you're in your more passive states, so like Minnesota, and it's, a swastika being drawn, or stickers being placed, or the Hallel being attacked, or our events are only being shared on certain communication waves to make sure like no one shows up who shouldn't be showing up. I think that's the biggest thing right now, and it affects me deeply. My kids, the first thing they see when they go to our synagogue now is a police officer. That's who greets them. It's not their teacher. It's not other members. It is an officer. And granted, we're lucky. We have an officer who's the same officer, very consistent, and he's gained that trust. It's still an officer. That's where we're at right now. I wish I had something better to say. I wish I had like something more positive. But on a positive note, we're activating people. So we have these horrible things happening, but then we have people who want to take action. They want to respond. They're asking, how do we, tackle this? I've had more conversations with non-Jewish people who are like, what can I do to help? How can I help these conversations? So the allies are there. It's just really hard because we're like working through the loudest voices who aren't the majority of the voices. But the allies are there. They are there.
Wow. So I guess just, it's not the main question, but just maybe people are listening and they're in similar situations. So what is saying to people, go take self-defense classes, get a taser? Like what's this like? Is it like, are we arming the Jews now? Is this part of the strategy?
I've seen those conversations. ADL has not taken a stance on arming Jews, but I've seen the conversations. I mean, people are really afraid. I have a taser in my car. I've always had a taser in my car, though. I'm a woman. I travel at night. I go on road trips. I always have a taser. I will not have a gun. Guns scare me. I have my own relationship with guns. I will not have a gun. Right now, though, we're providing a lot of support on campuses. So we're connecting with the Hallels. We're doing, Shabbat dinners in conjunction with the ADL. We're providing the moral and emotional support. So we are doing that. What we're suggesting, education. Whether it's ADL, whether it's your local JCRC, whether it's your Jewish Federation who's in town, getting education programs in the school. So like we have a program, it's No Place for Hate. These are educational programs that are in the school. And people will say, well, ADL's tackling other issues when they have this No Place because it's not just on anti-Semitism. Well, I'm going to bring you back to 1913 when the ADL was founded. The mission statement of the ADL was to stop the defamations of Jews everywhere and also stop hate everywhere amongst all people so they live within peace. That's how it says word for word, but that's the gist of it. So ADL's mission has not been just Jewish issues.
I agree. And we've seen them take up other causes. The question that I have is, has their strategy worked? Or rather, I should ask, because I'm not informed enough, what is the strategy for stopping all hate? I think that's like a a magic question everybody wants to know the answer to. We have our thesis on that, Seth and I.
I heard your thesis.
Well, okay, you shouldn't tell that to the viewers, but okay, fine.
I'm sorry.
No, no, it's okay. It's okay. You heard it. But I'm asking again. I'm not trying to, I'm not putting any sort of blame on the ADL. I'm sure what it's doing is doing with, the purity of the heart of the people there. Like everyone is doing their best. We met here people from all walks, different organizations, Christians, Jews, everybody's trying. We met the guy from, you said on campus, last week we spoke to Chai Davidai from Colombia, the guy who went on the lawn and screamed and his clip got 50 million views. But everybody's doing something. The question is it working? Or do we have some confidence that we're getting to the root of the problem? That's my question. So maybe you can clue us in on what was the ADL's approach to stopping hate. Maybe they can enlighten us. What's the root of hate?
I don't think anyone else is doing what we're doing, and and that's exactly it. Nobody can comprehend what we're talking about. Who would even say that anti-Semites have anything valuable to say without saying we're anti-Semitic or we're self-hating Jews? But there's something that everybody's missing in this whole picture, and the reason why the solution is so close is because we're not waiting for anyone else to change. We're not waiting for the laws to be enacted. We're not waiting for a new politician to get elected. The answer is way closer than everybody thinks.
Like us, hit the bell thing on the YouTube so you can get a notification when a new episode is up. Well, this is the Jew function, and let's get back to our guest. How do we stop?
We have a huge education component. I'll talk on the education, because if you want to see like measurable results on what we're doing, and we work with kids, like we know, if you get to kids young enough and you can preach, don't hate people and all the biases, that education works. And I'll give an example. So at the Never Is Now conference, we had thousands of high schoolers, teenagers who showed up, who are part of our Never, No Place for Hate School partnership. They showed up in droves and are wanting to fight anti-Semitism on all levels. And guess what? They're our future. Like those are the kids who I'm hoping become elected politicians, who become community leaders, who are standing up in their workplaces. That is what's giving me the hope, are the kids in our educational programs. I have visited schools who are using these programs, and the kids are able to just demonstrate for me how they address if they hear a bigoted comment. And it's not running to the teacher first thing they hear. It's curiosity. Why did you say that? And asking for why. And then eventually, like, you involve a teacher, obviously. But these kids are taught to like question, and not just, I'm going to run tell the teacher. Why did you say that? Where is that coming from? And not only that, but they're reconciling. So how are you repairing the harm that has been done? These kids are able to demonstrate that for me on just walking in and saying, hey, I'm here for, school visit. That is probably the most measurable, because we're able to measure the number of schools. We have thousands of school partnerships all over the country. These kids are showing up to the conferences. They're showing up to programming. Does it hit the root cause? No. I think we both know, we all three know, the root cause is deeper. It's way deeper than that. And if I could have like a little Ghostbuster gun and like shoot the root cause, and then we could all I wouldn't have a job, you wouldn't have a job, we'd like happy together after, I'm definitely like, yeah, I would do that. Is it addressing the root cause? No. But education, in my view, and ADL's view, because they are running the program, it helps. It fucking helps. Because you're getting these kids when they're young enough.
Right. What do you think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We're just going to ask about the education. We also agree that education is where it's at. But it's funny. I talked to somebody for a long time about how to make the world a better place, and I kept talking about education. But because of conversations that I have with friends like Leo, to me, that education is like how to live in an integral world in harmony with everyone. But I only realized after 2 years of having a conversation, is a relative, that relative thought I was talking about like learning math and science the whole time. I thought of all the Passover Seders we sat having these conversations and all the conversations we had, and they thought that I was just saying everyone needs to be educated and then the problems will go away. what I meant by education was like education about how to be a person, how to get along with other people, how to deal with conflict, how to exist in an integral world. So it's worthwhile to define what that was like. I couldn't imagine you realize for 2 years you've been talking to this person, they thought you're talking about math, and that's going to solve it. And what they've been thinking about me, that I think that that's the solution to the problems in the world. So anyway, when we talk about education, what are we talking about? And how
It
are we
is
educating the children?
your
For
definition.
what?
Yes, your definition. So our No Place for Hate initiative is not this like, here is a class and you take the class once a week and then we do a project and then summer comes and you're like, bye. Our education, it is part of the school culture. It is done by the school. It is led by the students. It is student led. It is, and
These are
that's
public schools, private schools.
public schools, private schools, charter schools. Whoever wants the education, like we show up with the programming. And is student led. And the reason why it's student led, because we know it's going to work. If your teacher's just telling you this is how you need to be a better person, we all know we're not going to be a better person because the adult in the room told me to, and I don't want to. It is student led. These kids are leading initiatives, they're leading projects. Our ambassadors tend to be like student council, your kids who are already ready, within those leadership positions, who are showing and are the models of this behavior and of the curriculum. And it's woven into the school culture. We want school cultures. I don't want just a class. And we don't just like give schools the curriculum and say, see you later, give us back your numbers at the end of the year. We're in constant communication. If something's not working from our curriculum and you like need to amend it, we're there for you. Like we have an education department that is like hands-on working with these schools and doing whatever they need to do to help them achieve the culture that they need. And I mean, the schools we're walking into, I'll give you an example without naming names. I walked into a school with about 23 kids who are ready to meet me and talk about all the things that are going. They're about to sign their pledge. And they're telling me that this was initiated. Like these are what kids are facing in school. A child cornered another child in the bathroom and beat him up. Like there's what's like this, the kids are leading this because of incidences like this. And this has been a student who had been, harassing kids, saying really racist things, throughout the year. And he finally took it to violence. And that's what initiated them contacting the ADL and wanting to participate in this programming.
What's the content that the kids are getting from the program?
Yeah, I was about to say, just to answer the question, is this related in any way to something called SBL, social based learning? Have you heard of that?
It is. Yes.
Okay,
So it does, like those parameters, it does address. So what the kids are learning, I mean, it's based on the age. So for your younger kids, it's, we all live together. We all have to get together. We all are one people, little kid basis. Middle school and high school, you start getting into the more complex. So you start getting into like the different types of hates. So you have anti-Semitism. When we're talking about anti-Black racism, it's more than just these are Black people and people don't like Black people. It talks about like the history of within the United States and those parameters of why that racism exists, where it's coming from. It also addresses other different forms of hate. So it's educating these children, because you can't say like, don't hate. And you're like, well, what exactly is the hate? What does that look like? We're giving the kids those tools. And they're working out with teachers and students, and they have a really big art project that they work on together as a school. Like the entire school is doing this, but they're being informed on the different types of hate and how you combat that. So how we are dismantling anti-Semitism, how are we dismantling racism in a very teenage form of, it's more than just, I'm going to be friends with a Black person. It's, I'm going to stand up when I hear something said. And I think that's the big difference. Like we have programs that literally say, I'm going to be friends with a Jewish kid today. Okay, that's great. But are you going to say something when someone comes and calls him something? And so we're teaching the kids to act, because we see it all the time as adults, where you watch the videos. There's some racist attack happening and all the adults are sitting around and they're watching and they might be recording, but no one's saying anything.
Right. Of course,
Mhm.
it's tough.
It's a weird phenomenon.
It's such a weird phenomenon.
No, it's not, guys. It's not so weird. They've done all the
No, I mean,
in the 50s, and all the social experiments, or the Ash experiments and the Bandura experiments. Like they have all these great examples of how easily.
But for a person who feels that there is some kind of sense of what should be normal, it feels really abnormal when you see a video on a subway of someone like beating someone else up and everyone's just standing there. Even though this, we know from the science and these experiments, you said that it's human nature to, but it still feels weird. Like,
Yeah,
why are we
I
not
agree.
helping? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wonder if I,
yeah.
I wonder if I don't know if you discuss it, but I wonder what you think, or is it talked about internally? Or like what's common to all those forms of hate? Like what's the root of those things? Is there some talk about that?
No, but can I give you my personal?
Yeah, we want your
So
personal
ADL
perspective.
hat is off. I'm taking that hat off, making it very clear, and then put on my personal hat
The
of
yellow
what I
thing.
believe. Yes, make it very clear. Um, I'm gonna go to like two intersections of my life. I'm Black. You see that. I'm also Jewish. I'm gonna talk very 20th century. Um, and keep it there because that's where my perspective is in the history that I'm going to talk about. And I think that we really need to do that when we talk about these things. You guys do a really great job at it, but you go out into the world, people don't. They equate things that shouldn't be equated. And when people talk about the Holocaust, I'm like, no, let's back up from the Holocaust because the Holocaust didn't just happen in a vacuum. Like it was curated. It was curated in a way so it could be allowed to happen. And, and citizens don't stand up in arms. And if we go back years before that and Hitler came into power, anti-Semitism in the 20th century is very much linked with the hate of Black people within the 20th century. People don't realize Hitler went to America. Well, not him, but he sent people to America and said, go find me some hate. And America said, let's give you all the hate. And here's our Jim Crow laws. And it was very much rooted, obviously, in the hatred of Black people. And he brought those laws back. And some of our laws here in America, people don't realize Hitler did not do because he was like, that's just too heinous. Like even he had boundaries when it came to what he was going to replicate. And so within the 20th century, there is a close relationship with anti-Black hate and anti-Semitism, but they're not the same because anti-Black hate is on a linear scale and anti-Semitism is on a scale like this. And this scale is pretty much like, we're great. Like we're all doctors, lawyers, everyone loves us.
A cycle, would you say? A cycle,
Yes,
maybe.
And then we go downhill and everyone hates us. That is how anti-Semitism works. So they're not the same, but they come from the same in the 20th century, from the same birthplace when it regards Hitler and Nazism and fascism. As for like the root of hate, I mean, how far do you want to go?
Go to the beginning if you have to.
Well, I mean, Jews were hated very well in the beginning because of who they are and what they held on to and the traditions that we held on to. And then Jesus came along and we still have that myth of, we killed Jesus. It's a very much a myth, but I can tell you I hear it at least once a day.
I would want to make a distinction because, in Europe, white people enslaved white people, and in Africa, Black people enslaved African people, and there's no shortage. Genghis Khan was no, friend to the people. Um, there's no shortage of people hurting other people and people hating on other people. And in every city, there's gangs of people who of the same color who kill each other, and there's just no shortage of hate on that level. But when we talk about the Jewish thing, you here's a and one of the things that we keep trying to zoom in on is here's a group of people who you can't define by race, you can't define by like it's you have Black Jews, you have white Jews, you have yellow Jews, you got gay Jews, you got straight Jews. Like for example, if you go to like a very conservative Christian church, right? Like we don't have gay people here, like we don't. Or if you went to like in each thing, there's some we are that, but we're not that. But when you come to the Jews, we have religious ones and we have secular
The
ones.
hodgepodge.
It's like it's there's everyone is included. And so I know what you're talking about the connection between Hitler and the Jim Crow laws. There's also connection with Hitler and the Arabs. There's all fascinating thing like this. Yeah, there's
and we don't talk about Hitler and the Arabs.
No,
Right.
nobody
So
likes
there's
talking about it.
there's a lot of there's a lot of details that if anybody, nothing happened, as you said, nothing just happened one day without a lot of things happening along the way. We want to focus on the Jewish one though, because we think that, or our feeling is that if we can be, first of all, you talk about education. We have to spread an education of connection above our differences. We have to spread this education of love between us and what our shared goal is from humanity. Problem is, it's too big a problem. It's a couple billion people, and when you need to manage a couple billion people, you have no choice but to do it like the Maos or the Xi, or what you're dealing with, the huge groups of people. You have no choice but to institute really strict policies. But we have a tiny group of Jews. We have a tiny, tiny, tiny group. So it should be easier for us to be able to organize ourselves. And not only that, what the Jews do, it passes through the network. Leo talked about this hubs and nodes situation. Like if the Jews unite as this microcosm of humanity, so that should pass, that light, that feeling should be able to pass through the network to humanity and affect humanity in a good way. So we need to, our point of view is like, wow, our goal is everyone, right? For example, like you want to take care of your kid, but in order to do that, you got to like go out of the house and do this. By doing that, it takes care of the kid. So like we feel that by focusing on this point, all the other problems, of course, if we need security guards, if we need lawyers, if we need these things, of course, that's not the point. But if we can focus on this point, then we can get a fix in a lot of the other points. If the system can be filled with love and connection, then it'll start to work itself out. It's like you start feeding a sick person, like, chicken broth or, like healthy things. And all of a sudden the body starts to rebuild itself, and then it can do a lot of things. So we need to find that point of attack and
Well, before the master plan is complete, I'm curious to know if you feel, first of all, if you feel that somehow there's some responsibility on us, because
Jews.
one of the biggest sticking points, when we talk to guests, and I'm sure the ADL and other organizations fighting anti-Semitism are all on, it's all in the same, they're all dealing with the same thing. Is like, as soon as you start to question yourself, that's a no-no. If there's a problem, it's the side causing the problem. And we're
right,
just
like
taking
they persecuted me, they enslaved.
Yeah,
like we
right?
don't go around blaming the Egyptians, for enslaving us, right? We just don't. Like we want to say, what can we do now? What's in our hands?
I might say something controversial.
Good.
Finally.
Again, personal hat on.
Yeah,
so Passover's coming up. And all throughout the synagogues right now, we're talking about when the slaves escaped Egypt. And one parasha a few weeks ago was when the golden calf was created. And then it was like, oh no, we repent. And the thing we talked about that people don't talk about when it comes to that moment is the Jews who could not get on board were killed. Now, obviously, to be very clear, I am not advocating for that today. But there is something to be said within, because I see the infighting. We're all on Instagram, I call it Jewish gram. We're all on the gram. We see the infighting happening. We also see a group of Jews who I truly do believe today, if someone said, point me to all of your Jewish family, I'm going to collect them, they would definitely say, here is my Jewish family. Excommunication is okay. Being ousted from a tribe is okay. And I do think on some level, some of that ousting and excommunication needs to happen. As it did happen back in the day, except back in the day, you were just killed. But
so what's the difference? What's the difference between two Jews, three opinions, or what's the difference between Hillel and Shammai, or what's the difference between the whole Babylonian Talmud, for example, where they're constantly disagreeing with each other? but
Oh, bring
nobody's
on
getting
the
thrown out.
disagreement.
Hold on. And no one's getting thrown out versus somebody doing something so egregious that it's grounds for being thrown out. Because
What's the
we
line?
don't
What's the red
send someone
line?
out. We
So
don't send someone out for having a different opinion than us.
you can have a different opinion. I think that line comes of when you are marching against neo-Nazis in a march, yelling that Israel's a colonial state. I think it's one of those things like you know it when you see it. And there are things I've seen, especially, I know like the anti-Semitism talk, especially for you guys, has been way before October 7th. But I'm going to say October 7th because that's the one event everyone can agree on and everyone's been seeing. It's all been televised. There are things I have seen that I never thought in my life I'd see. I never thought in my life I would see Jews yelling for the destruction of Israel, standing alongside
Agreed.
self-proclaimed neo-Nazis who do not love us in any means, shape, way, or form. I never thought I would see a people forget our history, especially when we start talking about MENA, your Middle Eastern Jews, your Sephardic Jews, your Masorati Jews, who our history, when it comes to our relationship within Arab lands and Arab people, has not been pretty. It's not been this Ottoman peaceful period that gets preached. My family left Morocco for a reason. Hadid, the last name, was not a name that was given because someone in my family just loved an Arab and it was this beautiful love story. The Arab blood that runs through my veins, let's be frank, wasn't there by choice. These are hard conversations, and we have part of our community who's advocating against us. And I think that's where the break for a difference of opinion is when you start arguing against someone's right to exist and their humanity.
So yeah, we don't have any authority to throw anyone out of the tribe, but what we did come upon is that and it's true. A lot of them didn't, at the Exodus, there was a group that didn't leave. Most people don't know that. But what we do, what is in our hand though, is to start with, and it's kind of refreshing and hopeful and optimistic that we don't need to start with the ones who, Leo, you mentioned something to me earlier about these connection circles with people. We don't need to start with the biggest divisive thing. We need to find and start with the people that we have some common ground on. We need to start with the people. Like that's why these conversations are great, because we could probably find 10 things we don't agree on, or right. But let's start with it. Let's start, because what happens when you start connecting, like all of a sudden there's buzz between us. There's like energy between us. It's like you go to a stadium for a sports game. People could have a lot of different views about things, but like once the game starts going, right, this one could have a Biden thing on his lawn, and this one could have a Trump thing. But once the Giants or the Eagles or whoever it is like scores, like the whole place is electric because there's something that connects, and there starts to be a buzz, and that.
There's a
So
higher goal.
we don't need to start with all of the ones who we don't agree with or who are hostile. Or maybe let's say even if we don't agree, but hostile to us or
Right.
want to kill us. Let's start with building this buzz and then growing that circle more and more and more. And eventually, I believe that at some point, people wouldn't even have the chutzpah to try and attack us when that energy becomes so big amongst the Jewish people, and there's so much love, connection, light. What are the other adjectives there? Camaraderie, integrality, harmony between this group, between the black ones and the white ones and the gay ones and the straight ones and the right ones and the left ones and the big ones and the small ones, the Mizrahi ones and the Sephardic ones and the Ashkenazi ones. Right? When there's when from that big group, if we could just find a few to start this connection between them, this good connection between them, it'll radiate out to the whole network.
So what I'm hearing is we need like a Jewish football team we can all get behind, regardless of like what our political beliefs. But no, I completely agree. Some of the best conversations I have had in recent days have been other Jews who I don't necessarily agree with politically, where they fall in DEI, none of those things, because that what you're saying, it's that buzz between us of there's a shared history, regardless of what our views are today, there is this shared history that cannot be denied.
Right. And no, not only is there a shared history, which is a nice thing to have. I mean, other countries can claim that, and they can claim even shared biological roots and other things that we don't have. But we have a shared ideology. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, hold on. There's a call here to ignore. Yeah. Sorry. I was saying we have a shared ideology, a shared we translated this into a role in the human network, but a shared ideology. We keep repeating it here that we're called Jews from the word Yehudi, Yichud, unity, not just the tribe of Judea, which also comes from that, but Yichud, unity, and Hebrews from the word Ma'ava, conduit. We need to be conduits of this correct attitude, correct relationship between us, the ability to cover things with love, the ability to exercise this, this one law, the main law of Torah, love your friend as yourself. These are not just morally right things. These are clues, keys to actually a higher level of consciousness that we can attain, that we had attained, then sort of fell from it, mingled with everyone, specifically so now we can remember again and bring everyone into this fold. So this is a way bigger thing than just like, hey, nice to have, this is like tremendous, and yet we walk around as if like we expect everybody to treat us better or something. Like, why? Because we deserve it. Like, who deserves anything?
I go by love thy stranger. It appears, it's like the commandment that appears like the most in the Torah of love thy stranger, like beyond love thy neighbor, love thy stranger. And in many places you do see this happening. Like, so I'm sorry you were booted out of Never Is Now, but had you gone, you would have, it was happening on a micro level of, I've only been at ADL for not even 2 months. I go, and it was love your stranger all over. I was like, I don't know who you are, but apparently you know someone, and like it was just love all over. There was none of like the infighting. There was no like, oh, you're this, or you're like Reform, or you're Orthodoxy. There was none of this infighting, because we were all there for the same fight, and the fight is anti-Semitism. Like, we're all there and we understood the assignment. So like, I know it can happen. Now, whether it can happen and we have to get off the internet, because I mean, like, social media does play a hand in this. People get real brave when they're on social media. I've gotten some messages. I'm like, you would never say that to me if you're face to face. If you would, I would fight you. But
tase you.
Tase you. But getting off of social media and having these conversations have to be face to face. Whether it's Teams, whether it's Zoom, whether it's like truly face to face. These conversations need to be happening in face-to-face and off online. Like, social media is so toxic at this point. Like, you're not gonna change anyone's mind. And this is something that like literally someone said just the other day, oh, Hitler should have finished the job. You're not changing that person's mind. You're not gonna have a conversation. They're not there to get a different perspective. Get offline. And also, like, we're competing with Iran online. Like, we're just like TikTok, and you're competing with Iran. You're not going to win. Like, get offline, see people in person, and have these conversations, and start the small groups, whether it's at your synagogue, a library, your neighborhood. Having these conversations on a human to human level, you're going to get those results rather than, and I hang a lot on the internet. I have my Instagram handle. I love my stories, but I know at the end of the day, my impact is when I'm showing up in person to someone.
Jew Function is really it's a desperate attempt to change something about the rise in anti-Semitism that doesn't seem to go away, and looking at history usually ends with something terrible before we reach relative quiet again. But we don't want to reach something terrible. We want to do it now. So that's why we're doing this podcast. And if you like this, also consider leaving a small contribution on our Patreon channel. Right, we both have day jobs, by the way, so we're not hoping to make money from this. We're hoping to see some change of heart.
any funds are used to get this out there, to get this to people. We consider this the same way you go out every day to get money to feed your family, put a roof over your head. This is also critically important to our future, to our safety, to a good world, not only for Jews, but for everyone.
Well, this is the Jew function, and let's get back to our guest.
My impact is when I'm showing up in person to someone.
Okay, this is amazing. So now it's everyone agrees with you, and now people are getting together and starting to make these connections. And now what happens in those connections?
Ooh,
Like take it even further. Like, what do you talk about?
Well, okay, we can talk about who we are. Sorry, it's getting really loud. So if you need me to
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
So once we get in the library, so we're in the library and everyone is like in the library and like, what are we doing? I honestly don't know. I mean, it can mean, I do know it's many different things. Whether it's identifying people's talents and figuring out where we can plug them in. And then they can become that hub wherever we plug them into.
So so one thing we need, I want you to keep going, but I just want to fine tune it a little bit. If the goal is big enough, like you can set a team out, right? And everyone knows what, how to figure it out, because we're all going to end up back at the goal. So each one kind of makes it through the forest, this one with a bow and arrow, and this one with a sword, and this one with an axe. But we all know we're going to that castle.
Yes.
So what is the castle that we're all headed? So this one is graphic designer, this one's marketing, this one is copy editing, this one's shaking hands, this one's raising money, whatever it is. But where are we headed? Like, what do we fill with those spaces? Because I feel like I want to get on this wave with you. You have the energy, you have the vibe, but I want to know where it's going and how we can help refine that direction.
Right now, where I want to get going is people not hating Jews. Like that, I know it sounds so basic and so just like, I don't have this grand scheme, but I want to get to a point where I don't have kids, parents reporting that their child was called a kite in class. And the class laughed.
What's in our hands to do about it? What is the big goal we can focus on? Because we know that, if you stretch out the time, like you said, it's okay. So now we got here, but then it's going to go here. Then we got here. Then it's going to go here. So it's going to, until we solve it, it's not going to ever stop.
To a point where we're up here.
Yeah.
And then it's about to go teeter totter. Like we're about to go down that roller coaster again. And you have everyone who is not just Jewish people, because we've networked out so much so far. And we've like gotten people on our side and we've educated them. And we've said that when we start to teeter, it stops because everyone says, no, not here.
What's the reason why they'll say no? Because what's the reason? It's like you could train a dog. You could train a dog to with everything, but you don't put a piece of meat in front of the trained dog. You still like keep the stimuli away. Like the dog is trained, but if you run 1,000 squirrels in front of its face, he may get distracted, right? So like, you follow what I'm saying? Like, so
nature. How do we get to
there's always going to be the human nature there that's going to come back and blame the Jews. Once the problem happens, it could be a tsunami, it could be the financial. We could get everyone to the point of saying no, but if God forbid some tragedy comes to earth, people are going to start to blame the Jews. They just will. It's what they always do.
And I'm sorry, not to again rain on the party, but when the Holocaust was happening, Jews themselves in the U.S. were working to cover it up in the New York Times. And only 1% of Jews were saved by non-Jews out of the whole, right? And the world was late to join, and only reluctantly at that. And so again, and now the stakes are even higher because now we have the Muslims in the party, and they're having a good time at it. So,
by the way, we're not just questioning you, like pushing you against the wall. We're trying to refine this between us. So
because then my question goes to, well, we know it's going to happen. We know some big events going to happen. Everyone's going to blame the Jews. How about we go insular and we just create our own world and we say, y'all can blame us, but we're in our own world.
Good. So we tried it. So we tried it. So Jews stayed in their ghettos for a couple hundred years, but it doesn't really work because it doesn't work because by nature we want to be drawn out. We're people person. You can't lock up all the hubs. They need to be out in the world, so they will be drawn out. Alexander the Great, I mean, Alexander, I'm sorry, the Tsar Alexander, he called the Jews out of the shtetls and the ghettos and like, hey, come to the university, study, leave your crazy religion behind and come join us. And they did. And suddenly there was Bolshevism and suddenly revolution and suddenly everybody turning against the Jews again. So there's no way to actually do it. You know, we've been called isolationists and we've also been called assimilationists. So it's not there. You're thinking right, but it's not there. What we're saying is maybe we keep 10% of the people. Let's keep the big Jews to keep the guys the anti-Semites at the doors, so nobody actually tries anything funny.
The guys with the ear things in and the guns, we keep them
yeah,
at
these
the
guys, right? So keep them outside for now. Hopefully, the police, the law enforcement agencies, they're they're on the side of sanity. Everybody kind of keeps it together for now. Again, everything's really precarious. Iran, this, that. The world is not it's really on the balance here. But let's say we manage to keep everything in. Now the question is, back to this, everybody in the library talking. How can we rekindle that memory that we really have this quality between us, and that if we exercise this quality between us really, really strong, people will start to notice it and really subconsciously will be drawn to it. That's really what we're saying. Not we are saying it. Wiser people than us have said it, right?
I mean, I think there's different steps. The infighting needs to stop. The infighting really needs to stop. If we're infighting and we're doing it very publicly and loudly, people are watching that. Why would they take us seriously? They're like, exactly. You want us not to hate you, but like you are literally calling your people within your tribe names.
Right.
But you don't want us to hate you. Infighting needs to stop. Coming together as a community in whatever way, whether it's, because part of me is like, okay, we all say Shema every day at the same time every day, and we rekindle that in a religious way, but not everyone is observant. And so that's, its own.
But hold on, what's in your heart when you say Shema? You're thinking of the Creator, you're thinking of them. Sorry for going so deep, but I think a lot of people consider themselves good people. I'm a good Jew. I have this relationship with the Creator, right? What about the relationship with the other? Are you actually thinking of your other friend, stranger, neighbor when you're doing that?
So, yeah, when I close my eyes and say Shema, and usually I'm really focused. Like my kids could be asking something. Bye, get out of here. I'm thinking of Israel, and it's more than just the state of Israel. I am thinking of Israel as our people. And I am thinking of the hurt and the pain that we're in, but also thinking towards this future of joy. And as we talked about earlier, no war and weapons being put down. And it might be this utopic ideal, but that is what I'm truly thinking of. I am thinking of my children and not having to answer difficult questions anymore. I am thinking of the people I'm with in community, who I will say right now, our synagogue is going through it. And we don't all agree. And we have some of those people that I just said, should be excommunicated at our synagogue. But I'm thinking of them and how to repair those relationships. I'm thinking of the relationships that have been lost. And it seems like a lot to be thinking of in like, what, it takes like a minute to say Shema. But that's what I'm encompassing and holding when I'm saying Shema. Like it is coming from deep down. And I don't want to say like, oh yeah, whenever I said Shema, it's always been that way. It hasn't. I don't want to come off as like some pious person. No, it hasn't. Like I'll say in the past when I was saying Shema, I was saying Shema to get my Shema in for the day and say, check it off on the box. But today when I'm saying it, it's coming from deep within, because we are hurting and we have these questions of how do we make it better? Where do we go from here? How do we stop this from happening again? And honestly, it's really hard to think about how to stop it from happening again, because I'm still in Groundhog, like I call it Groundhog Day. But I'm still back in October 7th.
No,
I don't know if like, and I think back because like the day before Shema Torah, we're in our shul. I was like trying to get my toddler to like stop running into the Torah scroll like Kool-Aid Man. And I thought we were in a good place. as a community. Like, we had our issues, but then October 7th happened. And I'm still there. I'm still waking up to that every single day. We never got to sit Shiva as a community. Like, yeah, there was the physical act of sitting Shiva in Israel, if you're connected. And so pretty much the whole nation of Israel was sitting Shiva. But we never really got to do that as a people. To really just sit down and think about what's happening. And so my biggest fear when we have these conversations of how do we prevent this from happening, or how do we stop the hate? My biggest fear right now is because we haven't been allowed to let go of the trauma that we're like actively living through every single day, that we'll never move forward. And therefore, there won't be a prevention. It'll just be, reacting to everything else that happens.
I think, we're still very much, you're probably just sensing as like a sensitive person. That long, very, very long day has not ended yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just it. And we won't be able to process it until we're, and maybe, I hate to even say, but, maybe we didn't even get to the darkest part of that day yet. Who knows with what could happen going forward. So because none of us are controlling billion-dollar budgets, but because of our spiritual perspective, we do feel that we can affect the network somehow. And
not only affect the network, that we were actually qualified to it, that we've been there. We've seen the depth of human egoism. We sort of went through the accelerated path, right? As humanity took 2,000 years to mature, 3,000 years to mature and kind of come to grips with, we're killing the planet, we're hurting each other, like we're selfish creatures, we got to do something about it. Jews got there really quickly. The story of Egypt, this coming out of Egypt that we're about to celebrate, that's really the internality of that story, is us going to the depth of the will to receive, the selfish desire for itself. I work for me. I don't even see, the profits of that eventually, yet I'm stuck in it. I'm like, I keep every day waking up, going to work, and not even seeing the rewards of that, right? This is what we came out of. And we came out of that, behaving a certain way, coming together in a certain way. And that's really what we're trying to kind of rekindle here between us. And I think we're all kind of feeling it. There's something that's happening when we really click, like those, what was that? Power Rangers? No, what was the name of those? Like they click. They
They all
click,
get together.
right? They click, and then something bigger emerges.
Transformers, right?
No.
Power Rangers. Power Rangers.
Oh,
Like,
Power Rangers. You're right.
Yeah, go something, right? You click together, and suddenly you're bigger than the sum of your parts. And this is, it's. I have a quote for you if you don't mind reading it from. It's from one of the greatest Kabbalists of the 20th century. I would argue the greatest. Put it in the chat. Hold on. And it's following. He wrote a whole article. It's called The Mutual Guarantee, right? About this arvut, right? The quality of. I want you to read it out loud if you don't mind. But I'll just say before you do, I'll just say that it's like he writes in this article earlier. He says that it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, black, white, yellow, without any essential difference, right? But because of the descent of human nature to the lowest degree, which is self-love, that rules over all of humanity without restraint, there's no way to negotiate with them and persuade them to agree to take it upon themselves, and that's why it's left for the Israeli nation. That we're dealing with the self-love thing, right? All those years ago. And so I think that right now we're at this time where we're really to do it again, like we did it back then, but now on a global scale. Like, imagine all the Jews deciding to rise above those selfish qualities that eventually drive us into ourselves. And
No, so this is a great quote. You want me to read it?
Yeah, read it out loud, and then you read it out loud, and then you will sort of make your wish for Passover for all the Jewish people that can hear you all over the world. All of our 10 listeners that are. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's a big crowd. It's a big crowd. I'm exaggerating. It's probably 12.
Okay.
So
this is why the text refers to them in singular form. As it is written, and Israel camped there before the mountain, which our sages interpret as one man with one heart. This is because each and every person from the nation completely detached himself from self-love and wanted only to benefit his friend. As we have shown above in item 16 regarding the meaning of mitzvah, love your friend as yourself. It turns out that all the individuals in the nation had come together and become one heart and one man, for only then were they qualified to receive the Torah. That's heavy. I'm gonna start off with, that reminds me of the song One. It's by like Billy Jonas. It's a kid's song of one. It's a Jewish song for kids, and it reminds them everything is one. We're all one. And I think that's where we need to be like today. Like, as people gather for Passover, or I even say before Passover, because right now I'm cleaning my house. Like, I'm going to each room every day cleaning my house. So as we prepare for Passover and reflecting as we clean or whatever you're doing to prepare, whether you're packing for a Passover trip, which I'm very jealous of you for, of how are we bringing in this Passover as one? And what are we doing to contribute to that? Whether it's an extra seat at the table for a guest, whether it's providing a meal for someone in your community who you know has no one to spend Passover with, and for whatever reason they want to be by themselves, whether it's remembering Elijah, the place for Elijah. And I think in past, before October 7th, for my kids, it was this fictitious, like, Elijah's going to come or open the door and we're yell for him to come. And it was really fun for them, but really honing in on that this year, with hostages still being held as hostages and the unknowns with that, as we have so many people who are hurt, whether or not they're speaking on whether they're hurt or not, of that place settings for them. Many of us are the Elijahs in our community, and we just need someone to call us home and tell us we're part of the community, we're one. I think that's my wish for Passover. We are the Elijahs. Sorry, I'm getting like emotional, and I'm not an emotional person. Like, I'm like, no.
I hope that
you're a great person, by the way.
I hope that we became the Power Rangers here, like in that sense that like we want to we said at the beginning, like how hydrogen and oxygen come together and make water. Like each time we have one of these conversations, we don't want to just like, attach you to us for an hour and then like you go away. We want to somehow find a way that this thing that we're doing keeps becoming this like emergent quality, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Like we want to make this force to radiate out as we, connect with you and talk about, like, the purpose of us like pushing you on these questions and stuff is not to like question you. It's like we want to squeeze this oil out. We want to get together and find something between us that we don't have on our own. We need to find in this community, in this like when the condition for receiving the Torah was to be one man, one person, one Adam, and we tried to do that with you for an hour. Like, how can we come together? And I hope that people who are listening can try this as much as they can to find those places of commonality, look for the place of connection, not for the place of every reason why we're different, and start bringing like into one hug together And I'm super happy to hear about all the work you're doing. I don't have a lot of connection to the ADL. I know my friend here, Leo's been kicked out of one of your events, but I haven't yet. But
we wish you would get kicked out too one day. So we'll pray for you.
Next year, is I'll get you registered, and then I'll have him just show up and get him kicked out and have to do the long walk same. And then he'll.
But to be in a situation where you get to communicate, where you get to educate our young people and give them tools, it's huge. It's the future, is the educating the next generation about who we are, what situation we're in. So we wish you tons of success and hope to be able to get closer to you and to widen our circle as well, and bring everybody closer and hopefully radiate out through the network. Love.
You are my friends. So if you ever need anything, seriously, if you ever need anything, reach out, whether it's me personally, whether it's something you need from the ADL, whether it's making sure you can get in next year, because that is an option. Truly reach out to me. And that's for all listeners too. Just don't reach out to me all at one time.
we will. We are really, Seth, really grateful for Iola to make the time to be with us, to sit with us, when she could be having this great buffet.
I know, there's like a whole food.
Yeah.
Smells really good.
Sacrificing all this, free buffet access for that. This is truly, it's got to be important. And we really hope, Seth said, that people remember that there's power in our roots, and it's not just words, it's not euphemism, it's not just morals and ethics. It's way bigger, and it affects all of humanity. Like, we could really change the world with this if we do it. It's on us. Nobody else will do it, simply. So I hope more people listen, get inspired, and tap into that. It's there.
A lot to think about right now. So I'll be reflecting on those questions, and you might get an email from me on just some reflections and thoughts.
Please, if you or our listeners, if you haven't checked out the first 22 episodes of the podcast, they lay out the historic pattern story really well. Please check them out. And if not, just listen, the short clips and listen to our talks. They're going to give you a lot to think about, I promise. And we're doing this together. So this is the Jew Function. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Iola and Seth.
Thanks, Iola.
We'll see each other soon.